Hello! We are going to take a look at the PSX emulator and how well it emulates things on the Retropie running on the Raspberry Pi 3 Model B. Just a quick explanation of what the hell I just said. Raspberry Pi is a single-board microcomputer that has an ARM processor, HDMI out and USB holes. And other things. The Retropie is a light operating system with a graphical user interface that you can install on the Raspberry Pi. And the Retropie is especially made for the emulators. And it comes installed with various emulators, PSX just being one of them. However, we are going to just focus on the PlayStation 1 side of things right now. Emulation can be tricky and it might be impossible to get good results even on a powerful system. For example, PS3 has lots of issues with various PS1 games. Even PlayStation 2 that has some bits and pieces of the original old PlayStation in it fails to be 100% accurate. Raspberry Pi 3 draws just around 2.5 to 3 watts of juice out of the shock holes on the wall, and this is very cheap system also, provided that you have controllers from previous consoles or from computer. So can this little computation device do the job? Short answer is yes. Longer answer is that it performs well enough to be a valid purchase for the PlayStation 1 retro gamer. It has problems, but I have been playing good 2 weeks with it and it seems to handle things a lot better than PlayStation 3. And it is definitely more quieter than fat PlayStation 2. For this video I chose a bit more obscure titles, since they are most likely to show faults in the emulation. And some well-known games that people actually might want to play with this thing. And here are my findings about these games. One quick note before we start: when I am talking about the emulator, I'm always referring to the default PSX emulator on the Retropie, unless I state otherwise. Unfortunately, I have to start with some bad news. The game that everybody is waiting to play on the real PlayStation or on the emulators, it does not work that well on the Retropie Raspberry Pi 3 combination. And that game is of course
Hooters Road Trip!
Hooters Road Trip is a late PlayStation 1 title, so technically it should be solid. And it is. However, gameplay-wise, there is nothing to write home about. One little thing I noticed is that the load screens are always the same with the emulator. On the real PlayStation 1 they are more randomly displayed. Maybe there is a random number generating issue with the emulator. Not a big deal with this game, but it might lead to issues with other games. When playing this game on the real PlayStation 1, controls are poor. However, emulation on the Retropie adds this input lag / slowdown combination with this game, making the controlling of the game kind of hard in most cases. Only cars with low handling values are ironically the ones that can be kept on the road. I have a theory that this game actually runs on so-called high resolution mode. And not many games did, so emulating it might be trickier. There is another PlayStation 1 emulator available on the Retropie, and it can run this game smoothly. Also, EPSXE on the PC performed very poorly with this game, even though it was not maxing the CPU cores or the GPU. So this is more of an emulation than a horsepower issue. But there is a bigger problem. When you reach the finishing line of the first level, there is a full motion cutscene, and after that a loading screen should appear. However, Hooters Road Trip crashes the emulator just after the cutscene, and you are returned to the Retropie dashboard.
Hey there! Welcome to Jacksonville.
I tried with few ROM image dumps on various formats, without a luck. I even dumped disk image and burned that to an actual disk. This was just to make sure that it worked on a real PlayStation 1, and it did. Here is a ghetto-ass footage from a real PlayStation 1. I have only the PAL PlayStation 1, so it was either black and white footage or camera on the TV recording. So as you can see, when the full motion video clip is over, load screen appears and then you get this 3D card and then it's on to the next level. I also tried this with the emulators on the PC, they had the same issue, only the EPSXe was able to load the next part of the game without crashing. This makes Hooters Road Trip unbeatable on the emulator. Even if you import your real PlayStation 1 saves, you always have to start your road trip from the first level, so there is no avoiding this bug. But does anyone really care? PAL version of the Final Fantasy VII runs virtually perfect on the emulator. Overworld, battles, full motion video bits, and all seem to function how they should. Granted, this is a huge game and I have only played about 5 hours of it on the emulator, but I have had 0 issues. Okay, there was this minor issue. Recording from the capture had weird sound issues, there was this crackle in the music. It was only with this game, which was odd. But only in the HDMI recording. Sound from the TV and headphones was okay. So, being a little paranoid because sound emulation is one of the hardest things about the emulation, I decided to compare the emulator's audio to the real PlayStation 1's audio. Since HDMI capture came out corrupted, I recorded the emulator sound from the TV's headphone jack, using Steinberg UR22 Mark II and PC. Real PlayStation 1's signal I captured from the PS1's sexy dedicated audio ports, using the same method as with the emulator. In the next bit, emulator and PlayStation 1 versions of the Cosmo Canyon theme are synced. I switch around the version of the sound that is playing. Can you tell the difference? I doubt that with YouTube's audio compression you can tell any difference. With a good source and decent headphones, there is slightly more metallic timbre on the emulator sound. However, the differences are minor and might just be because of my TV setup. So, Final Fantasy VII is more than okay with this emulator. PAL version of the Ridge Racer Type 4 runs fine. I have played through the Grand Prix mode and there are no performance issues. However, the quick test that I did with the NTSC version revealed some slowdown. I am not that familiar with the NTSC version, so I don't know if this is accurate or not. Both versions of the game, however, had strange audio bug. The reverb effect was on when it should have been off, and vice versa. In other words, you get the reverb when you are on the open road, but the reverb is off, for example, when driving into tunnels.
3, 2, 1, go! Here we go! 3 laps to go. 3, 2, 1, go! Here we go! 3 laps to go.
You can turn off the reverb completely in the emulator, but that is only a partial fix. So, PAL version is completely playable with obvious audio bug. NTSC version shares this bug but might have some performance issues. Ridge Racer Type 4 came with the Hi-Spec demo disc that should run smoother than the original game. It should run 50 frames per second and use high resolution mode. Like the Hooters Road Trip that I suspected using the high resolution mode, this suffers from the input lag / slowdown combination. Only it's even worse with this game.
Luulet siis olevasi hyväkin. Katsotaan. Olen kuullut, että olet aika hyvä. Sehän nähdään. Et aja riittävän lujaa. Ajat liian lujaa. Käytä jarruja. Ole varovaisempi. Väärä suunta. Käytä ensi kerralla rattia. Muista jarruttaa ennen kuin törmät johonkin. Jätä ralliammattilaisen.
I tried various emulator settings and resolutions, but the problem persisted. I also tested the NTSC 60 frames per second version called the Turbo mode, and it had the exact same issues. There is a bug also in the volume options. Your selections on the CD audio volume do not register at all. This is a common problem on many emulators with many games. However, this is the only one that I have tested on the Retropie that seems to suffer from this. And the last thing, at least on the PAL version, bottom of the screen is cropped off and the screen position options cannot fix this. Similar issue is also present on the PlayStation 3, but cropped out part is displayed as a stretched out set of pixels. So, Ridge Racer Hi-Spec demo and the Turbo mode are unfortunately somewhat unplayable on this emulation device.
Great job! I got everything on camera so you'll watch it later, huh? You're the greatest!
Die Hard Trilogy has 3 games on one disc. At quick glance everything seems to work fine. That said, I have put enough time only to the Die Hard with a Vengeance game to say that it has most likely no issues. Only minor thing that seems to be off is in the Die Hard 2 level editor. The level editor is a hidden mode where you can completely modify, make and save custom levels. It is however a bit cumbersome and requires usage of 2 controllers. However, on the emulator it does not display the red menu arrow, thus making things even more confusing and complicated. But on normal gameplay, everything seems fine and dandy with Die Hard Trilogy.
Let's see.
Tommi Mäkinen Rally has the opposite problem that Hooters Road Trip and Ridge Racer Hi-Spec demo had. The game runs too fast.
You're going too fast. Use your brakes. Leave the rallying to the professional.
This is easiest to see in Challenge Tommi Mäkinen mode. Not only due to the speed of the action, but often Tommi says that you're not driving fast enough, even when the countdown is still going. This does not happen on the real PlayStation 1. Funny thing is that this speed up makes game much more entertaining and challenging, even if it fails to be true to the way it should run. So it is an emulation fail, but gaming enjoyment win.
Coming soon to a PlayStation near you. Music 2, developed by Jester Interactive, published by Codemasters.
The last game that we are going to look at in this video is actually not even a game. It is a music program called Music 2000. You can make complete songs by loading samples, manipulating them, arranging them in melody or rhythm patterns, kinda like in Actual Tracker, for example like in Fast Tracker 2. The sound emulation seems to be spot on, but just to be sure I recorded one of the pre-made songs on the Music 2000, from the emulator and from the PS1. I am going to play first a sample how the emulator version sounds from the HDMI capture, and after that how the same part of the song sounds coming off from those sexy PlayStation 1 audio ports. So, was there a difference? Well, if there is, it's kind of hard to tell. Just as a bonus, let's hear how the PlayStation 3 emulates this song. Right. This is one of those games that PlayStation 3 completely drops the ball with.
Hi, I'm Tommi Mäkinen.
Retropie does not completely get straight pass with this one either.
We will see.
Music 2000 has an audio CD sampler function that does not work properly with the emulator. You can mount an image of an audio CD and play it. Not just in Music 2000 but in other games such as in Retropie. And you have the emulator correctly playing it. Playing the CD works in the emulated Music 2000, but to rewind and fast forward do not work properly, as they do not seem to work on my PlayStation 2 either, and the drive on my PlayStation 1 is bad enough that same could be said there. However, if you try to record the sample on the emulator, the game freezes and just plays the CD audio without responding to anything.
Let's see. You're not going fast enough.
This is kind of a shame because the sampling function is kind of unusable on the real PlayStation 1 due to the limited size of memory cards. You could make a sampling masterpiece, but you would not be able to save it. With the emulator save states, that would be possible, provided that the sampler part would work in the first place. Also worth pointing out is that I had sometimes bit audio crackling at the start of the samples when having 48,000 kHz sound output on the emulator, but setting the sound output to 44,100 kHz fixed that issue. So basically Music 2000 works as well or even better than it would practically work on the real PlayStation 1. Shame about the audio sampler being bugged, because otherwise you could do masterpieces like this one.
I've heard you. Hi, I'm Tommi. I've heard you pretty good. Let's see.
Alors comme ça,
Hi,
alors comme ça, alors comme ça,
Hi, I'm Tommi. I've heard you pretty good. Let's see.
That is it for this time. Tell me if you heard differences between the audio examples or if you would like to see more of these emulation looks. Also, if I came off as a nitpicky, well, that is kind of the point. If you're thinking about getting Raspberry Pi for the PlayStation 1 emulation, let me say this. I could play my PlayStation 1 games on my PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 or on my PC, but I play them on the Pi because overall it provides best and most convenient experience. It's a good enough system, get it? See you later, alligator. I'm talking to the microphone, waving my hands, alone in my apartment. I'm not a crazy person, I'm doing this for the internet. Video. Ooh.